Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans, I'm back. All right, folks, welcome to the show. In Moderation Pod. Keep it very simple. Nice little 20 minutes, me talking some shit about shit I think that's important. It's 10:03 Central Standard Time. You'll probably be listening to this much later. But let's get down to it. I wanted to talk about Elon Musk and his position as a White House advisor and this whole Doge thing, right? Especially in the wake of him slashing USAID, which is, if I'm looking at it right, the U.S. Agency of International Development. So essentially they are responsible for administering humanitarian aid basically all over the world. Now, Elon obviously saw that as a waste of taxpayer dollars and the whole 9 yards. So he's cutting it off. Now, I don't know too much about that agency, right? But if we're cutting spending, according to this information, in administration, then we're cutting spending, right? My only issue with that, right, is cool. Put more money back into the American hands, more America first. Let's get rid of our frivolous spending. My issue is why would you want a South African doing that for you? You had all this time, Republican, Democrat, whatever, right? You've had all this time to take care of these internal problems within your federal government, but you're going to let a South African, particularly a South African from apartheid South Africa, do this job for you. That's the part that's weird, right? Elon Musk is part of the PayPal mafia. He was a co-founder, along with Peter Thiel, of PayPal and the whole 9 yards. They're boys. They know each other. JD Vance fits into that mix as well because he worked at PayPal for Elon and Peter Thiel. So there you have it, right? So what's weird to me, right, is, okay, cool. So you want to cut spending on some of these government programs. Then why not the same energy for Ukraine? Now, granted, it was during the Biden administration, but you could have pushed to slash all that spending that was going on in the Ukraine. And now all of a sudden you're still administering. And the reason why I say this is because you're still administering aid to the Ukraine and to the potential acquisition of Palestine and removing all the Palestinians and sending them elsewhere.
Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them.
So you'll spend money on all of these international affairs, but when it comes to your domestic affairs, you want to cut spending. That is what rings odd to me, right? Back here domestically in the States, we're just cutting, we're just cutting government programs and government funding left and right. So that's going to be like the theme of this podcast today, is like all of this cutting government funding, right? So I just don't understand the premise in that, right? And on top of that, you're letting the person that you've appointed to preside over all of this is my other chief issue, because citizen or not, he's a South African whose parents are still in South Africa. They never migrated to the United States. They're still in South Africa chilling. He's here running businesses in the whole 9 yards. Cool, whatever, right? But his advisory role, to me, in my honest to God opinion, is a stretch too powerful, if that makes any sense, at least for me. So that's my personal take on that. So getting into some more slashing of government funding programs in the whole 9 yards, FCC, Federal Communications Commission's chairman, Brendan Carr, is opening up an investigation against NPR, and PBS. Now, NPR and PBS are, are public broadcast networks funded by and large by taxpayer dollars and whatnot. And the argument Brendan Carr came up with was that NPR and PBS are running commercials on their platforms, which is apparently illegal because they are publicly funded. They're publicly funded. So running ads to make more money is not what you're supposed to be doing. Now, according to what NPR and PBS is saying, they've been FCC compliant the entire time. And from the looks of it, from how I've seen it, because I play them on the radio, they play here in the Midwest at 88.7, the whole 9 yards. They don't run commercials or advertisements for real anyway. So they've been FCC compliant as far as I know. But I think this is another government funding slash or government cut that they want to make, because Trump in his last administration mentioned getting rid of NPR and PBS. Cool, I'm all about curbing government spending. I'm actually a big fan of that. The only issue is this, right? And let me make sure I'm looking at this right. My issue comes with slashing funding for public forms of education. And I'm big on education. And the reason why is because people, particularly as adults, don't really learn too much outside of what they already know as they get older. So these platforms, these public broadcasting networks are key in educating folks about things that they wouldn't have otherwise been privy to, right? Any other time based on their standardized education in their respective states. So the removal of certain mediums that allow people to become more educated, particularly as adults, don't necessarily sit right with me. So I have to respectfully disagree with Brendan Carr's decision to investigate NPR and PBS, because I know the end goal is to try to get NPR and PBS the fuck out of here. That's bad. Because now you have less public forms of education, and less public forms of education means less people talking, less people learning, less American people or members of the American Commonwealth being informed. And that's not something I'm going for, bro. Especially a guy who went to a journalism school, was in broadcast communications, was in these journalistic circles. Education is an important aspect of the education of the Commonwealth. You gotta have it. So another government funding cut that I don't really that I'm not a proponent of, right? So those are just my main issues. Those are the main issues that are sticking in my head today. But there was one thing in particular, and it's a relative new development, kind of happened over the weekend or whatnot, was a tweet from my boy JD Vance. And boy, I wish I had your real name. I need to get your real name on here, or whatever the case may be. But JD Vance had a post on Twitter that reads, and I quote, "If a judge tries to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal." That's what he wrote on X. If a judge tried, he continues and says, if a judge tried to command the attorney general in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Now, that's the end of his post on Twitter, right? He seemingly posted this after, posted this on a Sunday after a Saturday decision by a federal judge to temporarily bar political appointees and special government employees like White House advisor Elon Musk from accessing sensitive data and payment systems of the U.S. Treasury Department, which is what the whole hype was about a couple of weeks ago, about how he had access to people's social security numbers, credit report histories, and the whole 9 yards. People ain't like that. So they federal judge ordered no. Now, The federal judges are under the judicial branch, right, of the three branches of government. And this is where J.D. Vance, in his last sentence of that ex post, is wrong. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. That's incorrect. And it is anti-constitutional because in the Constitution created the three branches of government, right? We have the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, right? Now, the judicial branch is responsible for the interpretation of federal law. So what they apparently found, and the reason why they barred Elon Musk from having access to these payment systems to the U.S. Treasury is because he's a White House advisor. He ain't got no business seeing none of that information, none of your information or the information of the Commonwealth in regards to our financials and our credit history, credit worthiness, whatever the fuck you want to call it. He ain't got no business being involved in that, right? Because he's an advisor. He's not like really an official. He's not an actual government official. He's an advisor to the president, the whole 9 yards, and that's cool. But stay in your lane. Now for J.D. Vance, right? These three branches were created independent of one another so that one could check the other. It's called the system of checks and balances. That's what you know what I'm saying? So the judicial branch did their job. You can't all of a sudden in a fucking tweet tell the judicial branch of the federal government to not do their job. And even if you wanted to, you or Donnie Boy wanted to rule what, you know what I'm saying, wanted to interpret what they ruled as unconstitutional or whatever the case may be, then it's going to the fucking Supreme Court at the bottom line. But what you guys are proposing, I'm not going to say you guys, let me use the right language here, but what you, J.D. Vance, are proposing is that your employer, Donald Trump, has the right to just circumvent the branches of government. You're going to have a rough time with that. And saying that kind of shit in this country could be a big problem for you. And let me explain why. Because if you're going to use rhetoric that potentially threatens the separation of powers, especially those three branches, right? You got to understand that the motherfuckers that voted for you, right, are the Constitution thumpers. Now, with that being said, I don't think a lot of those folks that voted for you, Mr. J.D. Vance and Donnie Boy, have ever read that Constitution. But that don't matter. What matters is they are the Constitution thumpers. And because of that, if they ever find out, ever, that you think or perceive that the judicial branch is not, you know what I'm saying, authorized to do their job based on how you feel about them type shit. Let me tell you something, JD. Let me tell you something. You're from Ohio, you're an American, you should understand this better than anybody. The Constitution thumpers are going to pack you out in that Oval Office. Listen, I understand you got a little power now, you know what I'm saying? You're feeling yourself a little bit, but slow your roll, playboy. Listen, your employer is Donnie, right? You're still an employee of the federal government, which means you are subject to this Constitution and those branches of government just like everybody else. Now, say what you want. Like, that's your opinion. Don't get me wrong. But understand that your opinion, right, can come with backlash. And here's the backlash. Those Constitution thumpers will give you a wedgie right there in front of the White House and the whole 9 yards. If they find out ever that you think that the Constitution doesn't apply to me and my president, relax, player, relax. All right, don't get too ahead of yourself. It's a dangerous game to play. All right, that's just a forewarning. I understand. Like, listen, you, Elon, Peter Thiel with his little Straussian moment, and if for those of you who have never read that Straussian moment memo or memorandum or whatever that Peter Thiel wrote, I strongly suggest you go check that out. But I know you I know you guys are using Trump as the conduit to get your technocratic, that's what I'm saying. That's what I meant to say. Your technocratic bag off, right? To create an oligarchy of techno nerds and the whole 9 yards. Just understand. Just because you think you're smarter than the average American because you come from the world of technocrats does not mean these folks will not pack your ass out if it comes down to it. I think there's a level of naivete amongst the managerial class, the technocrat class, the security class that assumes that the American Commonwealth are these mentally incompetent and fearful individuals. If January 6th is any indication of what the American Commonwealth is capable of, rhetoric like this, what you're saying, JD Vance, and acting upon that rhetoric could trigger something much, much worse. Okay? There's a lot more of them than there are of you. Okay? So you might want to talk more about keeping that Constitution intact as opposed to trying to get rid of it or get rid of parts of it. I wouldn't mention that, especially not on no damn public forum. Those are the kind of thoughts that you keep to yourself to keep from getting slapped in the fucking face. So that's what I'd recommend to you, Mr. Vance. Okay? You're still the vice president. All respect due to you. All I'm doing is letting you know this in your best interest. Okay? Because the American Commonwealth is attached to the American Constitution and the American dream. You take any of those things out, then the deal is off, and now it's Mad Max all over the fucking world. You know what I'm saying? And I don't, listen, no disrespect to you, but I think, me personally, I don't think you have the balls to handle what happens when that contract, the Constitution, is just abolished. Okay? I don't think you're ready to handle the end result of that. Nor do I think any of these managerial, technocrat, security classes are ready for the full dismantling of the United States. And I understand that y'all kind of playing with this right now. You're kind of playing a game of chicken with the American people, with the branches of government. You're trying to essentially shake up everything that everybody is held as tried and true here in the United States, and under the guise, under the guise claim that the system doesn't work and we need to dismantle it. Just be careful, because I don't think you can perceive what would happen as an end result of that. So, that being said, move wisely. Now, for the end of this pod, man, I'm gonna need some recommendations from y'all. I'm strongly considering getting this YouTube Premium. I really am. I might do it. I might pull the trigger. But it's like $20, bro. Like $20 a month for the convenience of, no ads or whatever the case may be. The ads last like a few seconds, maybe. Sometimes them shits be like 30 seconds, the whole 30, 45 seconds or whatever, right? But I'm wondering if I should do that. Like, I'm wondering if I should go ahead and pull the trigger on that. So if somebody could please, somebody who has it, please tell me the benefits of it. Because I saw that all over Twitter. People were telling me, oh, bro, once you get YouTube Premium, you never go back. You get YouTube music with it and the whole 9 yards. And you could just have your playlist playing with no commercials in there and the whole 9. So I'm like, that sounds convincing. I'm kind of feeling that, you know what I mean? But somebody hit me in the comments and tell me, what's the real value of YouTube Premium? So, with that being said, I got better shit to do today. It's been great giving you guys my personal take and some information on what's going on around here. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans, till next time.